and the people who love them.
Hello, this is The Thing About Cars, recording as always at Strong Box West in Atlanta. It's kind of a wet and rainy day outside, but we're still here recording and glad you're joining us. Around the table we have
David.
David's returning for his second episode.
Beka.
Ronnie. Ben.
And I'm Mickey as usual. Just some quick housekeeping details. We are doing a little bit of fundraising so we can raise funds. That seems sort of silly, but we need to afford new microphones. We record using a Zoom recording deck, which works just fine, but our two condenser mics, I think, are not serving our listening audience very well, and we want to improve our quality for you guys. So please check out our website, thethingaboutcars.com, and maybe even our Facebook page, The Thing About Cars, to learn about ways that you might be able to help us get into slightly better recording gigs, and we are grateful for your help for that. Also on the horizon, our friend Greg Barner, he does car shows. His company is called C5 Car Shows, and on October 21, they will be doing a car show at the Brookhaven Arts Festival. And I'm thinking at least I will go. I don't know if any of the rest of us will go, but maybe we should talk to Greg and see if we could actually record an episode while we're there.
It was a good show last year. Really cool variety of things were there.
Yeah. There was a wide diversity of things. It wasn't unmanageably huge either.
Right.
And for the small number, I shouldn't say small number of cars because it wasn't a small number of cars.
No.
But for the number of cars that they had, there were plenty of cool things to see.
Yeah.
Everything from a Westfalia van to this car that caught my eye, which was a converted C4 Corvette with what looked like a Bel Air body kit on it.
Yeah.
And that was kind of interesting. Yeah, I'll show you pictures of it later.
Okay.
Yeah, it looked really, really cool. So we've got a pretty full agenda in front of us today. Beka wants to talk about her new acquisition. Ben has a question related to a company car's odometer. I'm going to start us off by saying I was driving down the road the other day and I saw this Lexus in the far right lane, and we came up to a hill, so the Lexus appeared to gun it to get over to this hill, and huge gouts of water just came out the tailpipes. And it wasn't just steam, and it wasn't just a trickle, it was like full-on gout of water came out both tailpipes.
Seal broken?
And I'm like, what the heck did I just see? Because she wasn't blowing white smoke any other time. There was no extra smoke that I could see coming out of this engine. But what was it at that moment, just starting to go uphill? He or she hit the accelerator and just fluid pumped out the back.
Well, I think uphill is kind of the key word.
Yeah.
I think there was moisture kind of pooled somewhere in the system, and going uphill and at an accelerating rate made it all come out. Thing is that your exhaust gases will produce a little water vapor.
Sure.
Yeah, that's something that has come up on forums before, but that's a good thing to point out because there had been other, I can't really say flooding. We've actually been doing better here in Georgia recently, but something I had to point out on a forum, there were a lot of areas with standing water, and the standing water will get into your tailpipes, and that can also, it can sit in the mufflers or in the pipe somewhere. So
my cousins from India used to say that if you idled the engine and if moisture dripped out the back end of came out of the exhaust just at a trickle, that was the sign of a good engine, quote unquote. I'm like, what does that mean exactly? Sign of a good engine? Just because
turning over is a sign of it.
Well, and water vapor coming out, just basically means you've got oxygen and hydrogen reacting somewhere in the system. Because obviously water is not occurring in liquid form in the combustion chamber.
Exactly.
But yeah, you have hydrogen coming out of the hydrocarbons.
Well, or there's condensate happening somewhere along the line.
Not in a hot exhaust system.
Not in a hot exhaust. No.
Well, I guess it depends on what kind of tips you have. I don't know. There are people that put fancy tips on their exhaust. I don't know.
Well, I'm just going to keep an eye on all Lexuses from now on and see how many of them shoot water whenever they accelerate.
I think I recall an explanation years ago, I think my dad or somebody gave me, that the hydrogen and the hydrocarbon is broken out during the combustion process, and then somewhere in the exhaust system recombines with oxygen, and you have a little water accumulation. But this is another good reason why cars that get highway miles predominantly, their exhausts last longer than cars that are all city miles, because the moisture does all get blown out pretty thoroughly.
Right.
Plus carbons, hydrocarbons, we're going faster, stopping less, we're blowing a lot more of it out.
So maybe this Lexus was still just cold and hadn't actually blown anything
Maybe.
out.
Next time on a cool day you're in traffic, if you're stuck at a red light behind like a big Dodge pickup, something with a large chrome rear bumper, look closely. You'll see little steam wisps on the bumper above the tailpipes.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
Oh yeah, yeah, Ronnie.
I was going to say, it actually is not just a Lexus thing. When I was in the BMW STEP program, we had that issue as well with all of the BMWs that were parked in. So there's a couple of factors that play in. One, you'll see it typically on your luxury vehicles because of stainless steel exhausts. If you go back to your basics of, I don't know what I guess you would call it, physics or chemistry, whichever one you want to do it. Everyone has arguments about that. You do develop condensation on stainless steel exhausts due to their inability to absorb oxides. And so when moisture develops, it develops externally and internally. So if you're not pushing your car, and you're just kind of keeping it at this happy medium, especially if you're in a high humidity climate, moisture will collect wherever it can collect, which means it will sit in your mufflers, your resonators, et cetera, and if it's never blown out, then it's just going to keep collecting there unless you run the car long enough for it to evaporate. So what we would do at the BMW shop was we would randomly start the M5 and the M3 and we'd romp on it, and we would literally shoot. It looked like giant super soakers for tailpipes. It was like just waterfalls of water would just come flying out, and we'd get everyone wet. It was great.
And it's not just high-end luxury that has stainless steel exhaust systems. There are a lot of cars that have stainless steel exhaust.
if that's what they move to, then great. But again, being from an older school, some manufacturers, I don't know, old Hondas, old Toyotas, they had aluminized exhausts, and so those are more prone to rust, and they will actually absorb moisture. Stainless steel, it just kind of blocks it all and leaves it. And if anyone thinks I'm misquoting this science because I'm not a scientist and I haven't really delved into this for years, please let us know. Message in, type on the forums, call me an idiot, whatever. It's fine.
You're an idiot.
That's fine.
No, he's not. He just opened the door, that's all.
Yeah, but that's part of why you will see, especially if the car is going up a hill, then all the fluid kind of collects to the bottom side. I'm using my hands, obviously, you listeners can't see it, but it collects to the bottom edge of your exhaust, and so giving it that extra romp on the gas will force it out a little bit more.
Dave, you've never noticed any of this on your BMW, have you?
No, but then I'm not usually riding on the back looking at the tailpipe.
Not usually back behind it.
Just going to set them up and let you knock them out of the park.
Along Ronnie's science hour over here, another thing with the stainless steel is there are lots of different coatings that people can use. There are different grades of steel based on the coating, so that could potentially play into it as well.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Correct.
So,
Beka, tell us about the Jeep.
So yeah, if you want to laugh at me or whatever, I have a third car now. Yay! And what's funny enough, I sent pictures to some of my friends. I haven't published it anywhere. It used to be an annoyance. Now it's just funny. Every car I get my hands on is white. It always happens. I know I'm destined to have that car.
You're sure you're not subconsciously just going towards...
I might have been this time. No, prior to this, I was beyond frustrated because anybody who says a black car is hard to keep clean has never tried to keep a white car clean.
That's the truth.
It is worse because if you have a black car, at least when you have a scratch and you get dirt in the scratch, it's not as obvious. If you have a white car and there's just a little scratch, any amount of dirt, it looks like you're a derby car. Forget it. So it used to be frustration. This time there may have been a little subconscious, especially after I made my whole car logo, and it's called Pale Horse Garage. Anyways, so I ended up getting a Jeep Liberty. It's an 07 with 119,000 miles. So some people look at me like I'm a little bit nuts. Your usual person will go out and buy a new or newish car and drive it for a couple of years. But if you've been listening long enough, you might know some of the plight of the Pontiac. Poor Pontiac. The Mustang is meant to be a project car. She's not meant to come out. Only to play. But the Pontiac has been in the garage, essentially dead. And it might have been, I think, the last episode we were talking about passing emissions. The thing that started it all. and nobody wants to work on this car. And David, I know you might not be familiar. What I have is a Pontiac G8, which is actually a Holden Commodore. Nobody seems to want to touch it.
It's true. I mean, in Beka's defense, she's been to a number of different people to describe the problem, and she has had shops tell her, no, we don't want to do that.
Or they'll tell me, call back in 3 months, or call back at the end of the year, or I have gotten such a runaround, even on places that describe themselves as LS experts. And I'm not using the name of a shop there, even though they were one of them. So it's been an ongoing frustration, and I've been using the Mustang as a daily driver to cart around 2 8-year-old twins, putting a lot of mileage on a car that I don't want on standard insurance. I want on agreed value insurance, and you can't put that many miles on an agreed value car. Plus, she's almost 22 years old, 200,000 miles. I know that's lighter in miles than you guys. She's spent the majority of the last 10 years being garaged, being a project. So my biggest goal is don't kill her. I mean, she's one of my big reasons for a living. So
that's why you picked up the Jeep.
Right. So the Pontiac, since it's been in the garage almost a year, and I have the notes. I garaged it in October, and we're getting close, just a couple of months from that. And I kind of threw my hands up. But even when the Pontiac is working, I've got 2 rear-wheel drive V8 low-profile cars, and there are so many places that I can't go. And my boys are getting older, and I think camping or just simple the river park, or every time I have to go to a school meeting and everybody has an SUV so they can find a parking spot by hopping the curb, I'm stuck. I have to park on the other side of the baseball field and walk 2 miles. So enter the Jeep. And my husband, he blew a vein. Mickey's showing some pictures. Most of those operate now. Okay, if you go second row down, see now there's a few. It's the older one with the rounder. It's referred to as the KJ.
Okay.
And some of that might have been on a version. The newer one, the 08 and the Up Liberties, are designated as the KK. And I thought that might be too close. So there might have been an internal aversion to getting a Liberty that was newer. But I like the little round. The older one has that Jeepy look. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Have you taken it off any sweet jumps yet?
Jumps. My goodness. Okay. With my history of cars, I'm walking into this. Right now, it's just trying to find off-road. And I used to think it was easier. And what I came across when one of my kids and I went out one day, most of the off-road things that I can find, you have to pay to get in.
Sure.
Because they think you're going to go fishing or something. No, just trying to find gravel. How am I not finding gravel in Georgia?
There's got to be ways to find that without having to pay for it. I mean,
right?
This is Georgia.
Right.
Half of our roads you see during the summer that are covered in red clay, you have to be in that summer.
I just need to leave the metro area. That's my problem. But yeah, so I have a third.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. It's
well, there's something else on your list that you wanted to talk about today. I'm wondering if it's related. You wrote the word clutches over it.
It's not related. This is an issue that actually goes way back. I don't like to say how long ago, then everybody can know how old I am. When I was 18, I was involved in a serious traffic collision that resulted in, among other things, my knee basically being destroyed, my left knee. It was hit by the door and the dash and a few other things. So unfortunately, and I will admit it here, I cannot drive a manual. It kills me. I cannot drive one. Part of the appeal of the G8 was that I had the auto manual, so it gave me a little bit of control back, except that computer will jump in if it doesn't like what you're doing. But Mustang clutches in particular, they have a long distance that they travel. They are stiff. I had a good friend that used to be an NMRA mechanic, which is the National Mustang Racing Association. He had a Cobra, a 98 Cobra, so a year newer than mine. He had the King Cobra clutch on it. He had the clutch adjuster, and he invited me in to give it a shot. And I got three shifts out of it before you could see that my knee was obviously in distress. I can somewhat do Honda clutches. Not worth it enough to have a Honda. for me. So one thing that my friend Max and I had often talked about is what kind of clutch could I get my hands on? And he's referred to generally racing clutches, something where the knee is less involved, there's less travel. It's more about, I guess, calf and all that. So, but he's never been specific, and I've tried forums, and nobody can actually send me down any kind of specific road. If anybody, and I'm not expecting anybody here to know either,
What
but
vehicle would you want to put a racing clutch in?
the Mustang.
But the Mustang is currently an automatic.
Yeah, because I have to.
Why not just leave it that way and not worry about the racing clutch at all?
Because I want to have more control with the car. I enjoy my driving. I like having control of the vehicle. And if you remember some of my rants about computer controls, that I don't want a car that's doing it all for me. It's my thing. I want to drive. I want to drive like I can feel the road. Therefore, I know what I need to do. I don't want the car to tell me what kind of traction it needs. I don't.
I get it.
Yeah,
Okay.
I want to control that car.
I get it's maybe showing a little too much naivety, but my BMW's got paddle shifters. It's an automatic with paddle shifters. My previous car was a manual, but
And
my
that's
wife can't drive one.
similar to the Pontiac. The Pontiac doesn't use pedals, but it has the gear shifter.
Yeah.
You can basically smack it around, you
Okay.
just pop
Tilt
it
it
up
up,
and
tilt
pop
it
it
down.
down. Yeah. But
You're looking for more than that, but not using your knee.
and I'm sorry, I just totally went blank there.
The racing clutch in the Mustang.
No, the like the Pontiac, like the G8, the G8 computer. If it doesn't like how I'm using the manual shifter, it will shift for me. So I'm assuming if the G8's doing it, the BMW is probably also sitting back there like the parent, going, you ought to shift here. So I don't.
Yeah.
I want to feel the car. I want the car to tell me how I need to drive it. I don't.
Yeah, if I could butt in on that, a lot of the rental cars I drive have, they've all got automatics, and most of them have some sort of manual mode, whether it's bumping the lever in the center or with paddles, and I find the manual mode on all of them to be completely unsatisfying. It makes me wonder why they even bothered.
Yeah, I've had the same impression, actually. It's like, why is this here?
Yeah.
Does anyone actually ever use that with any regularity?
Well,
There probably are times when they might be a little handy, maybe on certain hills, or if you're towing something.
or to
maybe,
give the people the disillusion that they are shifting their car.
that too.
Make
yeah.
people think, I'm having fun, and yeah.
So you need to find a racing clutch to stick in the Mustang.
I need something, and it's just kind of anybody, if you can think of anything. Has Ronnie got something over here?
Yeah, you don't want a racing clutch. I don't know why anyone gave you that advice. That will blow. That almost blows my knee up, and I have a very healthy knee. I can't imagine what it's going to do to yours.
Well, I have no cartilage, so let's think about that. There's no cartilage in my left knee, so if it's going to blow it up, obviously it's the wrong direction.
We don't want anybody's knee to blow up.
Right. So I'll give you a quick reason as to why. So for those of you that are listening, if you take 3/4, this is how I teach people how to drive manual. Take 1/4 in your left hand, that's going to be your engine, and just for all intents and purposes, we're going to say that when that quarter spins, that's your engine making power. You put a second quarter or a nickel in between to the right side of that quarter, and then you take a third coin, another quarter, and you sandwich the middle one. So the right side quarter is now your transmission, the left side is your engine, and then the middle coin is your clutch. The harder that your right side coin clamps onto the center coin, that is your clutch being engaged. If your engine spins way faster than the pressure of the right side quarter can hold the middle one to the... This is very complicated, I know. But
And he's using his hands, and nobody can really see it. It might be a diagram we need to put up.
Right.
So he's doing well, though.
You're
Right.
saying if the engine is spinning too fast,
then the quarter in your right hand, the transmission, will not keep up because the center coin will slip. So in racing applications, when you have stronger power, a stronger engine where that quarter will spin faster, you need a high clamping force, which is where your pressure plate or your transmission comes in to clamp the clutch harder to the engine. To disengage that, you need more pressure, which is directly attached to your leg. So
Yeah.
that's why, for those of you that have driven racing clutches, racing cars, you will notice that to depress the clutch, it's really, really hard at first, and then all of a sudden it gets really easy. That initial overthrow is you starting the bend of your pressure plate, what they call spring fingers. Once those start to bend, they happily bend the rest of the way, and it's kind of an illusion as to why they bend easier. It's because you've been putting so much pressure to start the bend. But then as you start to release the clutch, you'll also notice that you're flexing your muscles a lot more to find that catch point on your clutch. Because if you try to let go smoothly, the clutch pedal will literally kick your foot off, and it'll just engage and you'll go. And that's kind of usually what you do in racing. You slam your gears. You don't slip anything. So if you're looking for an increased ease of performance, you need to upgrade to a hydraulic clutch system.
That's what I was thinking, and I couldn't even tell you exactly what clutch system they had in the older Mustangs.
And additionally, racing components are generally not designed for longevity.
Right. So
that's a very good point, Ben.
Yeah. So another side note is, if you're one of those people that has friends convince you, or the quote-unquote car person tell you that you need racing car parts on your daily driver, you don't. Unless the manufacturer did a piss poor job from the factory of installing something, which often happens.
It does happen, but
race car parts are literally meant for the racetrack.
But one thing you said just a moment ago, the Mustang is not the daily driver. She's not supposed to be the daily driver.
Right.
Still,
so,
if a racing clutch is going to cause you more pain, then there's got to be...
I think
what we need to do is we need to get you behind the wheel of an actual race car for a while and see what happens.
That'd be fun.
I'm not coming back!
Yeah.
So the big issue is just trying to find something that's easier, that has less travel, so less knee involved. But like you were saying, the Mustang is obviously not stock. Mm-hmm. I will leave that there since this is being recorded. So higher horsepower car would need something, like you were explaining, however, something easier on me.
We are rapidly running out of time. Can we switch over to Ben's topic about an odometer that was reading kind of wonky? What did you notice, Ben?
Yeah, this is a question somebody sent us, and I can't remember who. I think it was my friend Matt out in New Mexico. Matt, if you're listening and it wasn't you, sorry, man. Anyway.
Either way, thank you, Matt.
Right. Yeah, it's a company vehicle that I think he said he had a drive of 75 miles, and one company vehicle read it as 75 miles and the other read it as 78. He wondered what's going on.
So let me rephrase this to make sure I understand it. He had a company car, and he had a 75-mile commute to work.
Right.
Then he got another company car, and that new company car, the odometer said it was 78 miles instead of 75.
Yeah, if I recall correctly, that's what was going on.
Okay.
And, well, basically the short answer is not every vehicle is exactly accurate, and there's variations from one vehicle to the next.
And I was wondering if tire size might have something to do with
it.
It
can. And also speedometers and odometers often have intentional errors. Sometimes they don't read accurately throughout the entire speed range. But one intentional error, at least that comes up in speedometers I'm aware of, is with German vehicles. By German law, they are not allowed to read slower than the actual vehicle speed. So all German speedometers are going to be a little optimistic, and if the odometer is still driven from that, you'll get an error there. But, with any kind of system, you got errors.
Sure.
Just how much. So I think that's all that was going on with him.
So 78 to 75, that's a 3-mileage difference, and it could just be...
Sure, it just could...
That adds up, though.
Exactly what I think.
But where I'm going, there's also speedo gears in a car, depending on the age, the make, and all that, is how many you have, what they're made of, what the exact function is. But even something as simple as a little speedo gear being out of whack somewhere. But you were saying tire size. Some people will try to put on low-profile tires, or if you have a different kind of vehicle, thicker walled tires, without taking into mind the overall diameter.
Exactly.
Once you change the diameter, so I'm not talking about the wheel size or the tire size, but the whole.
The combined.
Outside diameter of the tire tread.
The circumference of the tread or the diameter of the wheel, both of which are essentially the same.
There are some great online calculators you can use, in fact, to, that will, you can, I'm just making a round shape of a tire with my hands, but some great online calculators, you can plug in a couple of different tire sizes, and they'll tell you what the difference in the outside diameter is and the number of revolutions per mile.
Right.
And that changes how your speedometer reads as well.
So that's the thing. If you change your tire size, you have to change the speedo gear. You have to change the.
It depends on the car.
Yeah.
Some of them, and I've been trying not to say Mustang too much.
Sorry, we sort of expected that.
Yeah, you can actually buy.
I haven't mentioned Lotus once, by the way.
You can actually buy speedometer recalibration, I guess, tools, at least for the older ones. It's a plug and play where it's got a binary system. You calculate what has changed. You change all your zeros and ones and tell the computer, and it'll compensate for it. So it entirely depends on what you're driving and how much it's changed as to what you do to correct that.
And along those lines, another very cool thing I've seen, and I did see this in Lotus circles, so there's my mention. People with really old cars in which the system is completely mechanical. It's usually a cable driven off, the back end of the transmission. Some of these guys are putting different wheels on that change their outside diameter. They might also be changing their rear axle ratio, things like that. Stuff that's all going to throw off their speedometer.
Stuff that we all do
Right.
first day. Yes.
Somebody out there has cooked up a GPS speedometer drive unit.
What?
It's a box
I've seen
about
them.
yeah,
Yes.
it's I don't know, I forget the exact size of the box. It's not really huge, but your speedometer cable plugs into that, and then you drive down the road. You use like a GPS app in your phone or something to see what your true speed is. You look at what your dial is showing, and then you tweak a little screw on the box accordingly.
So
It's expensive though. It's about $350.
So that is sort of amazing, but which raises the next question: is gauging your speed by satellite more accurate than gauging it on the road?
It has some
Generally, yes.
leeway, but with some of the older ones, when you go back before, especially before the OBD2, you can do something as simple as just changing the size of the speedo gear.
Right.
Yeah.
A lot of the older.
If what you need is available.
Well, I mean,
it depends on the car.
Yeah.
when I use Waze sometimes, and especially when I'm like on road trips, I'll turn on Waze's speed limit feature, and it's at least 2 or 3 miles off from what my speedometer says.
Mhm.
Oh, sure, yeah.
So I'm just wondering which is more accurate, my speedometer or the satellite.
It'd be interesting too. Next time you get new tires, watch to see if there's any sudden change on that, because even just your tire wear affects that outside diameter some.
Dave, you about to say?
In that case, Waze is trying to do instantaneous speed, which a couple of meters off, which GPS position can be a few meters off. That change in those corrections can make your mileage vary by a few miles per hour at any given moment. But for distance, it's probably going over a much longer distance, and a few meters over a couple of miles is not going to get you the 5% difference that we're seeing in the 75 to 78.
And whether or not there's any inherent damping in there too.
Well, Matt, if this was your question, thank you. And if it's not your question, whoever submitted it, please thank you. And we always like getting questions from our listening audience, which you can always do on our website, thethingaboutcars.com, or on our Facebook page. We are The Thing About Cars. That's all we have time for today. Thanks for joining us. And please, if you can help us do a little bit of fundraising towards better gear, you can find that information on our website and on our Facebook page. We will have a Patreon soon. And Pinecast does have a tip jar. We've actually received a few tips from folks. So keep your eye out for those opportunities. And thanks as always for joining us. Stay safe, you guys. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening. This has been The Thing About Cars. We'll see you on